Hello to another Next Talks. Today we have another inspiring digital leader. Welcome Tim White, the VP and Head of Global Digital from Teva. So Tim, how are you first of all?
Doing great, Dario. This is my last meeting before much needed vacation. So you can imagine the mood I'm in right now.
Indeed, but then that's a quite pleasant meeting, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Great. So let's start with the questions which we prepared for you today. First question, your career development was very colorful and intriguing and interesting, of course. So how was it to learn and work from and at Apple?
So I started my career selling Apple computers, actually. So that was pretty far back, actually, like right when Steve Jobs had returned to Apple. So it was a time when the company itself was going through a lot of change and transition. And I think one of the things that I really take from that era was, first of all, about selling. So you just learn how to sell, which I think in any business is very valuable. But in terms of Apple, it's the true approach to customer centricity in terms of really trying to figure out that in their case, of course, a computer or an iPod or whatever it is not there to serve the function of the technology. It's there to serve the function of something that a person or a customer wants to do. And I think somehow that has really transpired through my entire career development from then into the music industry and then subsequently for the last 15 years or so now into pharma, where the approach towards customer centricity is trickier, but certainly I think in the long run can actually add a lot more value. And so I think those are some of the things that I probably picked up in those early days that have carried through my career.
Ever seen or met Steve Jobs or Johnny Ive, any one of those?
I did get to go to an Apple keynote back in the early days. I think it was with the release of the Apple Cube, which was one of their very, very cool, innovative products that died very quickly, actually. They only lasted one or two iterations. So got to see him in person once. Of course, I was in the audience, so it's not like I got to meet Steve Jobs, but yeah, Steve Jobs was a big part of sort of my inspiration in the early part of my career and following him, and obviously was very sad when he passed away. Yeah.
Absolutely, indeed. And this leads us to the next question, which is what can pharma learn from Apple?
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, the customer centricity approach, as I mentioned earlier, I think pharma can also learn the value of somehow of thinking different. I mean, it's sort of an Apple's mentality and DNA, right? It's their tagline, or it was for many years. And I think from that sense, it's to say that the way in which we're going to solve the healthcare challenges of the 21st century are probably going to have to look very different than how we solved them in the 20th century. And that gets to the core of actually provision of care, medicine, physician-patient relationship, healthcare systems, reimbursement, all of these very tricky, complex, big topics I think are going to require a lot of thinking different, actually. And just as people had felt that kind of things had been very stabilized about, computing and PCs and these beige boxes for years, Apple came in and really reinvented all of this and rethought about how entire industries, be it music or technology or the creative arts, actually could be applied. And I think, if pharma can take that lesson and do it at scale, then I think we're actually in for a pretty bright future in terms of healthcare overall for all of us for the 21st century. Yeah.
Nice thoughts. Next question. Everyone who knows you, of course, knows that you're a very creative person, but you always, I mean, have to wonder where such creative persons are finding the inspiration for the creativity and how they become creative. So, what's your recipe for that?
Yeah, staying creative in a corporate world is almost. I sometimes feel like it's a bit like eating healthy or going to the gym or exercising. You need to actually train that. It's not something that you just naturally have, I think, as a creative person. And actually, you can fall into the process world and into the, all the restrictions of being in a big company, which can sometimes stifle creativity. So, I mean, for me personally, I actually still try to find outlets in pure creativity. So in things like music, I still write and play a fair amount of music. Obviously, it helps having a little one here at home, who in herself is very creative. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter. So plenty of opportunities there. And then obviously just in reading a lot, and not just always again getting trapped into reading the Harvard Business Review articles or the McKinsey Quarterly, but just reading about a lot of different things, and diverse topics, which you can connect the dots actually to then the business world. And I think that's actually somehow at the core of a lot of what creativity is seeing the bigger picture and being able to connect things from maybe across different areas that others wouldn't. And so I think somehow reading a lot also helps with that. Yeah, at least me personally, it does.
What are you reading currently?
I am reading yet another, and actually I see your beautiful Saturn V rocket behind you, yet another definitive history of the Apollo era at NASA. And you can see actually by the photos behind me as well, I'm quite the space historian and space nerd as well. But, really a lot of lessons about teamwork, innovation, scale, creativity, problem solving, which is just fascinating. I'm going to blank on the name, so please don't ask me the name exactly what it is because I've got it on my shelf over there. I could probably go get it, but it's a book about this thick, and it kind of goes through the entire history of the Apollo era at NASA.
Ah, very interesting. I'm currently reading the newest book from Malcolm Gladwell, How to Talk with Strangers. Quite interesting one.
Okay.
So
I'll have to add it to my holiday list because hopefully we'll be on a
He's
plane,
fantastic. Yeah.
and we'll get a good reading time. Cool. I'll check it out.
he's
Check
really
it out.
fantastic, so I like him a lot. Next question, digital transformation. We can't avoid it, right? So it's still a buzzword, right? But how did the digital transformation impact your leadership style in the last 18 months?
In the last 18 months. So I guess that it's a question about the pandemic. I mean, I think our team that I lead in Teva is was largely well equipped because more than anything, it was probably a leadership challenge in terms of how you inspired people, how you led without maybe being right there in front of them. All of these things that for me were kind of somewhat normal practice, I think, threw a lot of leaders around the world into a different way of thinking. And so I guess it was nice in that way, in that it did sort of speed up a lot of different thinking in organizations around the world. I think the other element for my leadership style somehow as well is to also bring closer the family component of work in terms of, I should say, the work-life balance or the family element in people's lives that maybe would be outside of work. Of course, when you're in work, you're in this environment where you're sort of laser focused on the goal, and even when you're all inspired around the same concepts, you're all very much behind it. I think that we've all been able to share this additional time with our families, and I know me personally, I've just not been traveling, which is a big change. Has meant that work-life integration concept has actually become more critical, and somehow I've gotten to know even much more about my colleagues and their families and the goods and the bads, the ups, the downs that happen. And I really, from that side, also have embraced that change and have had just different levels of discussion with folks. And I hope that lasts. Actually, I really do. Even if we end up going back to the office and traveling again, all of this, that personal connection has gotten much stronger.
Absolutely, that's quite interesting. I mean, we are dislocated but much more connected, right, with each other. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
next question: what and which moment in your professional career shaped your leadership style? Do you remember it?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think probably when I first arrived in Spain. So I worked in the United States for sort of the first 4 or 5 years of my formal career. So sort of the pharma bit. This was after working, selling Apple computers and being in the music industry, but going into pharma was in the U.S. and landing in Barcelona. I was in my mid 20s then and not speaking a word of Spanish, getting thrown into a leadership team and into a challenge actually on driving a transformation for an affiliate that I had very little cultural understanding or awareness of. I think really shaped my leadership because it also taught me an awful lot about needing to understand the nuance and complexity of change, and that people are very different, and actually change fundamentally is a people exercise. And so here I am as an American landing on their shores saying we can implement this, or we can do that, or we can do this for our customers, or we can speed up this process or do that. But if you didn't actually kind of get to the bottom of what who they were as people and what they were trying to achieve and what their ambitions were, you would not fall on success. And so for that, I have to say I had just amazing. I've always had amazing leaders that I've been blessed and lucky enough to have as management. Always, I mean, I can only speak highly of the leaders that I've gotten to work for. But certainly when I joined Spain, I worked for someone who I admire an awful lot, and he kind of brought me under his wing and really shaped me and showed me those concepts as well as many others, to be honest. But certainly that was a sort of a seminal moment of my leadership and of my career path. Yeah.
Very interesting indeed. Let's move forward to the quick fire questions, the most interesting
Okay.
block, if I can say so. And
Sure.
as usual, we expect just a short answer. And the first question is your favorite American product.
My favorite American product, probably my iPad.
I knew it. I knew it. It
Yeah.
came from Apple. So,
Yeah, it's a great product.
American or European football.
Oh, American football. Come on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I should rephrase it and say American football or European soccer, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I've learned to appreciate soccer. I do like it. Ajax, Amsterdam, great club and all that, but nothing beats Sunday afternoons watching American football. That's passion for me.
Glad to hear. Creativity is
Creativity is connecting the dots.
nice one. What do you miss most in Amsterdam from the States?
Ah, probably American football. No, uh, yeah, I actually people for sure, and people and sports actually. And my wife laughs at me for this, but for sure, people, family. It's just been really tough with the pandemic, not getting to see family, and sports. It's something that kind of connects me to my home city, to my home people, and I still try and stay connected, but it's sometimes hard in the time zone. So yeah.
Yeah, indeed. I really have to say that I'm visiting finally United States within a month, so I'm going to the Bruce Springsteen concert on Broadway, so really looking forward to it.
Great, enjoy it, Dario. Really, it's New York is an amazing city. I'm not a New Yorker; I'm from Philadelphia, but I do respect New York, and it's a great city. So enjoy it. Really, have a great time.
Thanks. Next question, proudest moment in your life?
Birth of my daughter for sure.
Yes, makes sense.
Mm.
If I wouldn't work in pharma, I would work in.
Uh, the airline industry.
Really? Why?
Yeah, I've always loved aircraft, airplanes, and all of that, of being around them, traveling, flying. It was actually one of the great early benefits of my career before family was that I did get to travel so much and be around aviation. And yeah, I love it. I would love to be a pilot. I really would. I
So
really
you
would.
miss traveling, right?
Yes, exactly. Traveling and actually the planes themselves. I think the engineering and they're really amazing devices actually. So yeah.
So, Tim, thank you very much. Was really a very pleasant interview. We're looking forward. Have a nice vacation and hopefully see you next year
Cheers.
in Dubrovnik. Take very good
Cheers,
care.
Dario. Thanks a lot and enjoy New York too. Yep. Take care.
Thank you.